In this morning's Health Watch, alarming news about autism. A new study from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says 1 in 88 children has at least some symptoms of the disorder. Of those, 1 in 54 will be boys. That's an increase of over 78% since 2002. The cost associated with autism will reach nearly $137 billion a year in the U.S.
And while the search for answers continues, millions of families struggle with the emotional and financial burden of caring for someone with autism. Joining us now are Bob and Suzanne Wright. They founded Autism Speaks in 2005 after their grandson was diagnosed with the disorder. Bob Wright is also the former chairman of NBC Universal. And good morning to both of you. And Bob, I think full disclosure here, you're also our former boss. Both of our former bosses at one time. Bosses. Back in the day, yes. Back in the day. But these statistics, they were startling to me. 1 in 88 children, $137 billion. Were they startling to you?
I just want to say one thing that people may not understand, because that number 137 just came out. Most of that $137 billion is borne by parents, not the state or the government. It's borne by parents. It's $60,000 a person. That's how that number comes out. And between loss of income and actually out-of-pocket expenses, if you live in an urban area, it's very easy to be more than $60,000. So that number is not a gift.
Right.
That's on them.
It's an important distinction in this whole debate about who's taking care of whom and
mostly on them.
Suzanne, can I ask you?
Sure.
For a parent out there who suspects there might be something wrong, there may be an autism issue here, but they just don't know what to do. What should they do?
They should go to autismspeaks.org, go to our website. We have developmental stages from 6, 12 months, 18 months. I suspected something, and I tell you, that was only 8 years ago. And when I went to the doctors, they said, don't worry about it, boys regress, because Katie had another child. In the day of the autism epidemic, you have to be safe, not sorry.
You have to press your pediatrician to make sure. Pediatricians have a guideline to have 2 examinations between 18 and 24 months. There's no question today that you can get a full diagnosis of autism by a year, but at least 18 months. And even though we can't prevent it, and there's nothing we can tell parents to do to avoid it, and there's nothing we can tell parents that they have done that, that was negative. So be prepared, and the issue is to get an early diagnosis and then immediately get into occupational, behavioral, and speech therapies.
Right.
And that's the guiding light to get to kindergarten and get into a public school. And almost 50% of children that are diagnosed with autism, if they do what I just described, they're going to have a pretty good chance to get through a public school system at or near age level with a lot of help. Otherwise, it's really a dark tale.
What do we think is driving such a significant increase?
I think Dr. Bierman from Columbia did a study sponsored by the NIH, which he said is better diagnosis, broader diagnosis, and more awareness. That was 50%. 50% is we don't know.
50%. So half of the cases, we don't know why they're happening. The other half, we just happen to be able to see it, to know.
I think we think that there's a lot of that half is genetic, but it's genetic susceptibility as opposed to identifiable genes. In other words, there's some exposure that has undergone that has taken that susceptibility into autism. Now, you see this with cancers, you see this with other conditions. It's not unusual. Cancer has a very large unknown factor. And so it's not like we're introducing an element here that isn't in other diseases and conditions.
Right.
But we don't know what causes it. We don't know how to cure it. Again, same difference from cancer. So the issue is you're treating it. We put all of our research money out there, but it needs so much more. We're starting from scratch here.
Quickly, Suzanne, tell me about the Light It Up Blue campaign.
Oh, thank you for asking. 2 years ago, I started with the Empire State Building, and that was about 200 buildings. And then last year, we were 2,000. This year, we're over 2,000. It is around the world. We're going to the Intrepid after this, where we're having Light It Up the Intrepid, and we're having Autism Speaks to the military families and salutes them. Because the military families who have autism have a very difficult time because they're deployed in different bases around the country, and many of those bases only have one therapist. So we want to light the world up blue, and we'll start with the Stock Exchange on the World Day. Duncan Niederauer is a great friend of ours. Go to Stock Exchange around the world. And Tommy Hilfiger lighted up the Empire State Building, Niagara Falls, Kingdom Tower in Saudi Arabia. It's just extraordinary.
We will look out for it. Thank you so much for being with us. Bob and Suzanne Wright,
nice to be here.
Autism Speaks.
Good to see you both.
Very much.